Hey y'all. All right, back again in the garage. But I will be going out to the RAM charger and showing you a little bit more about your charging and electrical systems. Today I'm going to go into more depth, more detail. So I guess you could say this is kind of a two-part series. The thing of it is, there's just an awful lot of material. There's an awful lot of information here to pass along, and I want to pass this on to you all because it's just a really great thing to do. And you really need to know, if when you're working on these vehicles and stuff like that, electrical problems are going to be something you're going to encounter. And if you don't know what to do, it can really be very, very taxing on you, very daunting. So, let's get into it, okay? All right, here. Okay, first of all, you're going to see this cable here, the end of this cable. Yeah, all right, there's my camera. It's focusing. All right, you see how it's like made up of thousands of these well, maybe not thousands, but bunches and bunches of these little wires, okay? Now, this is a battery cable. This is probably a 2-gauge. All right. Thing about this is basically how most all your battery cables are constructed. This is how a lot of wires are constructed too that go in your vehicles. Okay, so that's basically what they're going to look like. Okay, now this is essentially when you have battery cables that look like this, though. Yeah, you see that? That's bad. That's not good. Okay, that's pretty bad. You don't want that. Okay, I'll go ahead and tell you that. You don't want that. You want your cables to look something more like this here, or like they are on the RAM charger. Now, I mentioned heat the other day. When you have excessive heat on your battery cables, what can happen is you can have the insulation can be heavily discolored or deformed. Okay, when it deforms, it or discolors and it melts away. Well, when it's discolored, that clearly tells you that it's seen some heat. You need to get it away from the heat, or you need to wrap it or something like that. I mentioned the other day, I mentioned DEI. They're a company that makes all kinds of heat shields, heat wraps, that sort of thing. They make heat shields and heat wraps for cables and wires, as well as exhaust systems. So give them a look. I'm not sponsored by them. They just have really great products, and they're not ridiculously expensive, and they work really well. So I'm not going to be telling you all about stuff that doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to be telling you about stuff that works and works really, really well. Now, even though this cable has, show you something else here. Just notice this. See how this cable, it's got the insulation down to here, and it stops just short of the terminal end. Now, this is crimped really, really well, but you can see we have a little bit of exposed cable right there. And that's another thing to be aware of. Get yourself some electrical tape, you can even use silicone, gasket silicone maker, and cover that up. Or even some heat shrink tubing. Now, that also brings about, I'm kind of bouncing around here and I do apologize, but that also brings about when the cable, this is a prime example of a cable right here that's been heavily compromised. Can I get it down here so you can, all that glare from the window. Okay, let's see here. All right. See this cable here? See how the insulation is cracked and peeling off of it? My camera doesn't want to focus. There we go. Okay. Now it doesn't want to focus again. Some days, I'm telling you, man. Some days. Okay. Anyway, you can see the insulation there is just brittle. It's cracked. And the wires beneath are exposed. When you have exposed, see how it's just cracking apart there like that? I just barely pushed on it. When the insulation comes apart like that. It exposes the bare wires underneath. Now, this can happen with age, like this here, or it can happen with heat. The excessive heat will just melt this away, but the heat that isn't excessive, yeah, here we go. I can see this better now. So you see, this is a prime example of a cable you don't want to use on your vehicle for basically anything. Okay, this is something that would be pretty bad. So yeah, you don't want to use this. This is bad news. But when the wires are exposed, like right up here, what can happen is I keep mentioning excessive heat. When the excessive heat, it melts away the insulation, or, you know, basically heat checks the insulation and it cracks and falls away. Moisture can get in there and it can corrode the wires, along with like dirt or salt. Okay, salt from like the roads when they get salted in the wintertime, or if you live near the ocean, you know, salt can get inside of here. So this is something that is not good. This is a prime example of bad. Okay, this is what you don't want to see on your car. Okay, you don't want to see this. Okay, this guy you don't want to see on your car. You want to see something more like this one here, maybe, you know. So just as, you know, examples. Oh, also just as an example, 2-gauge cable, okay, and then this is probably 4-gauge cable right here. See what I'm talking about in size? So this is going to be able to carry a lot more voltage, a lot more amperage. It's going to have greater capacity. Also, another thing, if you are dealing with wires like this and you are kind of hard up and you don't have the ability to replace it right then, you think, hey, I'll just wrap this with electrical tape. Well, here's a problem, especially when they get really hot, okay, and the insulation melts away because they were too close to exhaust pipe or something like that. Make sure and check this thing out. Do a continuity test. Now, you might say to yourself, what is a continuity test? Okay, very simple. Break down the word continuity. It means it's like continue or continuous. Okay? So, if you have access to a multimeter, get one. If you don't, get yourself one, even a cheap one, and do a continuity test. It just basically means that the wire or cable is, you know, there's no breaks in the cable. Okay, there's no breaks in the wire. It's continuously, it has continuity. Okay, that's basically what it means. You just put your meter on the ohm setting, okay, and the ohm setting, I'll show you right here. Funny looking horseshoe shaped deal, see right there. You just put that on there. You hook like one end on one end of the wire, another end on the other end of the wire, and do a test it out, make sure it's good. That's basically it. It's not that hard. Okay, now let's see. Oh, let's go a little bit more in detail on batteries. I talked about cables. Let's talk about batteries, and let's talk about starters and alternators. Oh, and switches. I'm going to talk about switches just a little bit here too as well. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with switches first. Why do switches go bad, like your starter switch or any other kind of electrical switch? Why do they go bad, and how do they go bad? It's very simple. You have contacts inside of here, okay, and when those contacts get corroded up, then the switch can't work anymore. You can sometimes take switches apart. This one, you might be able to get this one apart and clean the contacts inside of it. However, you might be just better off just replacing it altogether. Okay, now also the connections here can sometimes get corrosion in there. Okay, So when you get corrosion in here, you can have a lot of trouble, okay? It can make things a lot harder for all the electrical components, okay? So in the vehicle, generally corrosion and electrical components just don't mix. Okay, now I mentioned this fellow the other day, the bulkhead connector. If you get corrosion in there on the contacts, take it apart. You have the bolt right there in the center. Take it apart, pull it apart. Do your very best to clean out all the corrosion and everything like that. Okay, of course you'll want to disconnect the battery and all of that, but do that and clean everything out. There's probably like old grease or old corrosion inhibitor type grease in there. Clean that out. Probably put you some new dielectric grease in there. Okay, that can be a serious problem for a lot of vehicles, so just something to be aware of. Batteries. Inside here is a series of plates. This is a lead acid battery. The plates are made of lead, and there's acid inside of it, hence the name, lead acid battery. If you have a battery like this, or even the Optima batteries have lead and acid in them. They just have a gel type acid. This is a liquid. But basically, you have plates inside here. They run up and down vertically. Some of these plates are connected together to form your positive side, and some are connected together to form your negative side. However, the negative and positive plates aren't connected together. Okay, that will be important here in just a minute. Your acid, basically, the lead plates will react to the acid inside, and that reaction makes electricity. Okay, the lead plates conduct the negative and positive charges, which is why we have the positive and negative sides to the battery. Now, you'll notice, but also too, I'm sorry, drifting a little bit, getting ahead. Inside here though, these lead plates, if they can have this skin that forms on them. That skin is made of deposits, okay? Those deposits can form over a lead plate and basically render it useless. So you don't want that. If that happens, then that will continuously happen over time, and it will basically kill the battery. Okay, so if enough of that happens to enough plates, it will kill the battery. So about really the only way to prevent that, well, there's ways to prevent it and ways to keep it from happening. I'm not going to go into detail on that here. There are videos that talk about that on YouTube, so look those up. Alternators. Alternator, like the starter, they are susceptible to heat and vibration, and also oil. With your alternator sitting up here like this one does, the oil's not much of a problem. However, heat can be, because you got your exhaust manifold right there. Okay, but with enough airflow through here, it's not that much of a problem. And also, you see it has a little internal fan here inside the alternator as well, which is very important. Some of the GM alternators, especially the older ones, they have the external fan. That is very important. Do not forget that fan. Alternators will naturally want to make alternating current. However, there's a problem. Vehicles don't use alternating current. Houses do. So what do? Well, they have a part inside of them called a rectifier, diode rectifier. Now, the diode rectifier basically converts that AC current to DC current, and when it does that, then it can be used in the vehicles. your vehicle will use it just fine. Then there's no problem. But if the rectifier goes bad, then the alternator will start trying to put AC current into a DC current battery, and then it will kill a good battery. All right, and you'll come out here and you'll have acid bubbling up out of it, and you'll smell a bunch of rotten eggs, and it's just, yeah, very bad day. Okay, you'll have acid to clean up. It's, yeah, if you ever have that problem, use baking soda. Okay, baking soda neutralizes acid. So there you go. Now, that's about it for the alternator. Starter, a little more in depth. What we need to know more about the starter. Starters, like I said earlier, they don't like excessive heat or vibration or oil. Okay, so if you have leaky valve covers, whatever, leaking oil down onto your starter, you need to get that fixed. Okay. Furthermore, make sure the starter mounting is clean, because your starter actually grounds through that mounting. Okay, take a minute or two just to clean it up. A little bit of brake parts cleaner or something like that. Okay. Also, your starter has this kind of stuff inside of it. It's basically, it insulates the windings. Same thing with the alternator. Okay, that kind of insulation, if the heat becomes too excessive, it can melt all of that out, and the starter will short out. I've seen that happen before. Oh, the alternators where they will make alternating current. The rectifier will go bad, and they'll start making alternating current, start putting it in the battery. I've seen that happen before. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, these are very important bits here. So yeah, don't ignore this stuff. But let's see. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, I was going to tell you common hydraulic items. Oh, now also too, I'm also going to tell you that some of this stuff I've been focusing on is Mopar specific. Okay, and well, for those of us, of the more Mopar centric, I guess, that's great. For those of you who isn't, sorry. But there's a lot of stuff here that crosses over and is, pertinent to just about any vehicle out there. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, now stuff like this starter relay, those are pretty much Mopar specific. There's a lot of Fords, though. They have the starter solenoid, which is similar but not exactly the same. And then, so just a little bit there to keep in mind. But bulkhead connectors, you'll find those on a lot of vehicles. Starters, alternators, batteries, pretty much common to most every vehicle out there. Okay. I was going to tell you about hydraulic items in a vehicle. Stuff that draws a lot of electricity from your electrical system in the vehicle. Your wipers, your blower motors, your AC air conditioning systems, because you have this clutch you have to engage. Okay, your headlights will draw a pretty good amount of electricity. So those are all things you need to be aware of. Also, if you have a cooling fan on your vehicle, electric cooling fans will draw a lot of electricity. If you have electric fuel pumps, again, another hydraulic item. Then if you're like this truck, this truck has power windows and power door locks. So this means that this has the electric lock. So with that in mind, that basically tells you that this is something of a hydraulic vehicle. Okay, so that's why I like to put, I mentioned this the other day, but it's worth repeating, bigger battery than what is absolutely necessary. Okay, you can go with like a much smaller, lower cranking amp battery, but basically the larger the battery, the more plates you have inside, the more capability you have to make more electricity. See what I'm talking about? All right, good. Okay, all right, covered a lot of ground here. I hope you learned something and you were able to pick something up from all of this. If you yeah, I hope you were able to pick something up from all of this and learn something. Feel free to put your questions down in the comment section below. I will be very glad to help you out and try to, answer any questions I can for you. I love doing that. I love that interaction. Also, too, I really do appreciate everybody for subscribing. Really, really do. It's really, and I'm serious about that. Really, just shocked how much people have subscribed to my channel. But let me point something else out to you, and that is that when you subscribe, you can become notified of any time I post a video like this one here. Okay? Now, some of y'all may already know all this. Some of you may not. Okay? But whenever you do subscribe, you can become notified of this. Okay? So, hit that subscribe button. Okay? Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the likes and the shares and everything else. So I thank you so much. I really, really do. And I mean that. So you all have a great day and God bless.